Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation on how aerosols have an effect on our health. So what actually happens as we inhale? You may be aware that aerosol particles enter the respiratory system through the nose and the mouth. This is why scientists highlight the importance of wearing masks, especially at the moment. Let's be more specific. As you can see here, how far a particle penetrates will depend on its size. Only those particles smaller than 5 micrometers will make it to the trachea. And as you move further into the airway, you can see that only the smallest particles, those smaller than 1 micrometer, are capable of penetrating all the way into the alveoli. So why is this important to our health? Bacteria tend to have a size range of around 0.5 microns to 10 microns. This means that some bacteria can penetrate deep into the lungs while others cannot. Viruses are the complete opposite, as they are small enough to accomplish this feat, as they exist in the range of 0.5 to 0.05 micrometers, and as such will be able to travel all the way to the alveoli. Now, fungal spores are larger than both bacteria and viruses on average. However, some are small enough to travel into the lungs. Most fungal spores are between 1 and 100 micrometers, limiting their exposure to the upper airways if they make it that far. If we are affected by a lung disease, the most immediate way to treat it is inhalation for two main reasons. It will act locally without interfering with the rest of the body, and it is handy for the patient to self-medicate. When referring to delivering aerosols to the lungs, we have two main characteristics to consider: the devices and the active pharmaceutical ingredient. This ingredient, usually found in a canister, are beta agonists and anticholinogenics that reverse airflow obstruction, and corticosteroids, which reduce airway inflammation, for instance during an asthma attack. Through nebulizers, in the case of a cold or a persistent cough, we can take mucolytics, as they reduce mucus viscosity and improve clearance, so that airways can be cleared sooner. Moreover, we can fight viruses or bacteria in our lungs thanks to inhalable antivirals and antibiotics, respectively. So far, traditional therapies have been mentioned. However, this is a field in constant evolution, as many patients would prefer aerosol treatments instead of injections. Research is going towards the validation of this route for delivering peptides, insulin, for example, which should make a patient's life easier when they are suffering with diabetes. Another interesting perspective is to use this path for vaccination. Commercially available is a nose spray to vaccinate against the seasonal flu, but many efforts have been made to have more compounds delivered in this way. The first line of defense against any foreign organism is the innate immune system. It comprises of physical and non-physical elements. Each part plays a vital interconnecting role to ensure proper immune competence. Here you can see the various types. Note that this is the very surface, and there are many more complex things occurring. Prebiotics, or the microbiome, protect us from many illnesses. They keep pathogenic bacteria occupied by competing with them for resources. Related diseases caused by dysbiosis, changes in normal microbiota, include cancer, mental disorders, IBS, acne, and many more. Keratinized epithelium is composed of dead squamous cells that create an impermeable barrier that is constantly being replenished, a physical barrier that pathogens cannot get through unless it is penetrated or broken. Innate immunity provides broad defenses against infection. This is present before any exposure to pathogens and is effective from the time of birth. It involves the non-specific response to pathogens. When a pathogen successfully breaks through an animal's external defenses, it encounters several innate cellular and chemical mechanisms that impede its attack on the body. These include phagocytosis, using macrophage neutrophils, which engulf and digest recognized foreign cells, a molecular inflammatory response, where localized tissue responds to an injury by producing swelling, redness, heat, and pain, as well as natural killer cells, which are a special class of lymphocyte-like cells that destroy virus-infected cells and cancer cells. in addition to interferons, proteins that non-specifically defend against viral infection. Here you can see the various complex pathways that occur in the innate immune response system. Adaptive immunity is targeted and specific, but also has a function of memory. It is made up of B and T lymphocytes. B lymphocytes roam around the lymph circulatory system and have membrane-bound antibodies that, once matured, these antibodies see the pathogen and the antibodies bind to the antigen that is presented on these pathogens, causing them to replicate now with the antibody recognizing it to fight for specific antigens, so that once the infection happens again, the secondary immune response system is stronger, better, and faster. B cells can also become activated into plasma cells. These produce about 2,000 antibodies per second for about 4 to 5 days until they die, and these antibodies are free flowing in the circulatory system or lymphatic system and bind pathogens, stopping entry or binding them together to mark them for death. On the other hand, T lymphocytes look for cells that have been hijacked by pathogens, causing inflammation, activating macrophage, producing other T cells, and regulating the immune response. They require antigen-presenting cells, such as dendritic cells, to present the antigen on its cell surface so that T cells attach to it, as they can only recognize fragments of the antigen, giving rise to two types of cells, helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. The helper cells bind the antigen-presenting cell, causing them to replicate into helper T cell memory cells. They raise the alarm for other T cells, by which they release chemical signals, cytokines, which interact with other T cell, exponentially increasing with the signal. Cytotoxic T cells kill pathogens that have infected cells. These cells that have antigen presenting on the cell surface are marked for death. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and here is some further reading in regards to immunology if you are interested.